Enemy of the state.
An enemy of the state.
Enemy of the state.
Dank Podstash.
You're listening to Enemy of the State's Dank Podstash. The Podstash is available on YouTube, SoundCloud, and everywhere else podcasts are found. Let us know where you want to listen, and we'll release there as well.
If you want to help us improve the podcast, check out our shops at blackmarketmemes.threadless.com and dankpodstash.threadless.com. Links will be provided. Anything you buy helps us make the Podstash better. Business owners and creators, advertise on the Dank Podstash. Reach a larger audience, make more sales. Email us at dankpodstash@gmail.com for details.
Washington State listeners, please check out Washington State Anarchists and Libertarians Facebook group. Help us expand the Agora face to face. All right, welcome to the 18th episode of Enemy of the State's Dank Podstash. My name is Nick, and I'm joined, as usual, with my co-host, David. How's it going, man?
It's going good. We're on episode 18. The podcast is finally an adult and can go to war and buy cigarettes.
Nice.
We're here with Luis Fernando Mises today, and he is a leadership development consultant, and he writes for the Dollar Vigilante. He's a shaman. He sells kratom. He started I don't know if it's a website or just a Facebook page, but Emancipated Human, and I like that and still like that. But why don't you introduce yourself there, Luis?
Yeah, well, I mean, right off the bat, it's, being 18 is kind of exciting, so I'm happy that I get that number. So, yeah, as you said it, and kudos, because you're actually like one of the very few that actually says my name right, so thank you for that. Yeah, leadership development consultant. I was telling Nick before we started the actual show what I do, and so we turned the pyramid of power upside down. You know, like a lot of people, they hate their jobs, so what I come and do with my friends from work, we teach them a different way. We teach them volunteerism in the corporate world. They move things around. They are more successful. They make more money. They're happier, and everything's better. So yeah, the kratom situation, I started actually importing that about 4 years ago, maybe 3.5. I got bit by a brown recluse, and as you know, like that causes necrosis, which is when your fucking skin dies, right?
Yeah.
And, like people lose limbs, and like some people die. Well, I didn't get necrosis, and I didn't die. So, but what's funny is like it fucked up my entire left side of my body's nervous system. So like there was a point where I couldn't even hold a cup of coffee with my left hand.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, it got pretty scary. So I have a couple of friends that were selling kratom at a time, and I can't stop, I have a bunch of people that depend on me. So I had to find something that was natural. So I found kratom and I started taking it, and I felt like, some people take like nootropics to get smarter. I was taking nootropics and kratom just to go back to where I was.
Oh, wow.
So anyway, kratom saved my life. And then whenever the government started doing a ban on it, I was like, okay, I know all my anarchist friends, if they see that something the government says they're against, they're going to go for it. So I imported the first time I imported like 6 kilos, and they sold the same day. And then I imported 6 more, and they sold. So I was like, okay, this could be a business. So I started doing it from then. And yeah, so it's, I've been able to help like dozens of people get off of opiates and hydrocodone, oxycodone, all sorts of shit, and even cocaine. I mean, you name it. Like, this stuff is amazing, and it helps with energy, euphoria. People that have the blues and that kind of stuff. So it's amazing. No wonder they want a ban. Apparently, the family that owns the oxycodone patent has been lobbying the state to ban kratom so they can use the biological blueprint of kratom to make a new product. So yeah, it's all around.
Well, that's pretty typical of the state there to come in and try to regulate everything, and the whole lobbying. That's absolutely typical and makes complete sense to me. Let's touch on that a little bit more. So how did they go about cracking down? How did that affect your business?
Oh shit. Well, okay. So here's the thing: they are making it illegal in a couple of places. Like it was illegal in I think 4 or 5 states. So I wouldn't ship there because I mean I am an anarchist, but I enjoy seeing my kids every day, and I don't want to go to jail. So you kind of play with the beast a little bit, right? So there was, Tennessee was one of them, but through, and this is something that I really want to talk about. Like, there is a way to create more freedom through actually the political realm. Like, all these guys voted and they told the state, we are not making kratom illegal. So it became like, it stayed fully legal, not a Schedule 1. Like, Schedule 1 is like heroin, dude. They wanted to make kratom a Schedule 1 for tests and purposes of testing and whatever. That's bullshit. So they created, so what that happened is like, okay, that was fine for a while, but they created a shadow ban for importing kratom. So while it's legal to have in the States to sell or consume, it's illegal to import. So that created another interesting opportunity because we started having to, I mean, I lost like freaking 4 months of, sales. And I mean, it's my side gig, kind of like my fun company, but it's, you kind of get used to certain lifestyle.
Yeah.
So we got smarter and we found loopholes and we're using them and we're kind of back on track. But yeah, I mean, just think about it, like people that depend on this shit, so they don't go back to heroin, like stuff that prevents them from having a life, from having loved people around them, and having work and all this stuff. Like, dude, you have no idea. Like, even sometimes I would give some for free for people that didn't have money to buy it. And I would see people like super, super skinny without a job or anything. They will come to my house, I'll give them a few ounces. And then now they're back to work and they have a life and they're like trying to block that from happening. I mean, that is like super cold and monstrous to me. No?
Yeah, that's pretty ridiculous, but again, very typical of the state. They don't want anybody, being self-reliant and able to get out of, especially, out of an addiction to opioids, which, is directly linked to them.
Absolutely. I mean, even George Washington grew poppies in the White House. I mean, that tells you that, and they used it for pain management too. So, I mean, that's complete fuckery of sorts.
So, yeah, I've heard a lot. I don't know that much about kratom. I've heard a lot about it being used for pain management and, getting away from an addiction to painkillers, opioids. So you've seen that be extremely beneficial for people? I feel like I'm ignorant to kratom.
Yeah, no, firsthand, dude. Like, I mean, like, just personally, like, from what I was telling you, the experience with the brown recluse bite, like, like people die and lose their limbs. And I didn't, like, I mean, I was able to continue to go to work and like do all these things. And, at that time I was putting 80-hour weeks because, I was trying to hustle to be able to get where I'm at right now. But I mean, like, shit, like, I mean, that stuff allowed me to keep my life the way I needed it. And I've helped, like I was telling you, people going from like toothpick skinny to actually having like a successful life again, and their families and all that. People in like pain, like taking away from you the ability to treat your own pain, that's fucking ridiculous. And that's what these guys are doing. Like, I noticed that kratom is even better than cannabis for pain management. I mean, that's saying a lot, right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
So whenever these people are saying like, well, hell no, we're gonna make it Schedule 1, I mean, that to me, like, continues to show that they don't really care what's right or what's wrong. They're just, they're just a puppet of these deep state, big pocket people.
Yeah, absolutely. That's nuts.
Nick.
I'm still here. I'm just sitting back, taking it all in. That's pretty interesting that it's.
No, that's fine. I was hoping you'd jump in with a question there.
Well, it's interesting that it's even better for pain management than cannabis. That's pretty crazy, and it has more uses obviously than just pain management. I see people using it for energy, brain health, all kinds of stuff. At least that's what I've seen. I don't know anything about it. If somebody wanted to learn more, besides contacting you, are there any other resources to really get the lowdown on kratom?
Yeah, I actually have had like 3 interviews, and I posted them on my website. And I think I've been on Anarchast 3 times, and one of those has been to talk just kratom, and then a couple others, and they're there in emancipatedhuman.com whenever you go to the buy kratom link. So like they have all sorts of information. Also, like the kratom, I can't remember the name of the people that do like a lot of activism with kratom, but kratom outreach of sorts. They have all the information, where it's legal, where it's not. And like you have to get smart if you're in a place where it's not legal. Maybe they can ship it to somebody like on a neighbor state where it's legal and whatever. So yeah, that stuff has been pretty amazing. And it's like under attack still. Like, I mean, shoot, like I've known since 3 years ago. So like really big companies that were selling kratom, they went out of business. I mean, like they're not just hurting people with like that rely on it for, pain, energy, whatever. Like they're also taking away millions of dollars off the market for like people that are producing a product and a service. I mean, it's all around a pretty horrible thing. And it's not just like automatization, like your normal stuff. The reason why businesses go out of business, if you will, but this is like just because they're trying to make somebody else uber rich. So it's pretty fucky, I think.
Oh yeah, cornering that pain management market by the the pharmaceutical industry hand in hand with the government. We talked with our last guest Hody about that a little bit, how they do that. It's shady, and like you said, it's keeping the certain people rich that they want to keep rich. I think it's really awesome. Stuff we were talking about before the show, like you mentioned, and then with kratom, it just seems like a lot of your work in your life in general is focused on healing, helping, and I guess inspiring the individual, which a lot of people forget about.
Oh yeah, I mean, okay, so I've been into shamanism, like I don't know, I've been reading about it since I was like 10, but I started actively doing it since 2010. And one time during an ayahuasca ceremony, I was digging up for purpose, and then it came up, your purpose is to be present and to empower people. Okay, so that's when I created Emancipated Human, which now is an LLC, so I can play with other things as well. So the consulting firm, what we do is, a lot of people, they're like, oh, I hate Mondays, I love Fridays and I live for my weekends. I mean, you don't hate Mondays, you hate your life, and why do you hate your life? I mean, if you're going to work for most of your life, why not do something that you like? And then, there's some people say, I just want to live off in the cabin and make complete self-reliance lead to poverty. I don't think that's something that people truly understand. So what I do, we go into corporate arena and we teach them volunteerism. We help them understand, how the pyramid of power, as you can see, a triangle at the top, there's the boss that tells everybody what to do and how to do it. And it's just a fractal, like everybody's breathing on each other's neck as you go down the hierarchical shit. So what we come here to do is we teach them that by turning the pyramid of power upside down, the supervisor, her real role is not to just be, telling everybody what to do, is to actually empower people and to remove obstacles so the work can actually do the work. And that leads to better results. People feel more empowered, more, responsible, and they make more money and they're more fulfilled. So it's like a win-win. And I mean, we get hired by a bunch of companies in the Forbes 100, amongst some that aren't because they don't want to pay the fee to be in the Forbes 100. So yeah, I mean, what we are creating is what John Mackey calls conscious capitalism. Is the maximization of profit is where we went wrong. Like, care nothing but the dollar. That's where we go wrong. Because Adam Smith in Wealth of the Nations, 1776, he kind of equated human labor with like a peg in the machinery where you throw raw materials, people, whatever. So like people were just a thing. But we have emotions, we have aspirations, desires, and all this. So when you don't just have hired hands, but you integrate their intellect and their heart, you create better results. And a lot of people are like, oh yeah, that sounds like hogwash, whatever. I mean, shit, like I'm in the corporate world every day and I see it. And at some point I went to Conscious Capitalism CEO conference, I don't know, like 5 years ago. And you had 201 CEOs, anything from Starbucks, Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, Chipotle, all the most important ones. And what they were saying was blowing my mind. They said stuff like, the government sucks and they're not doing what they're supposed to. We're the ones that we're going to build hospitals and parks and schools and all this stuff.
Wow.
Like everybody's always like shitting on like C-level people and all of that. And these guys are like, how can we make the world a better place? Like with all our money, our bags of money. And that's what they scheme about when they're in closed doors. It's pretty incredible.
That is incredible. Just goes to
It's
show.
an interesting point.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe I saw that you just had the CEO of Starbucks for an interview
that's
too.
why
Actually.
I get kind of like, yeah, well, no, he was actually the president of Starbucks. Okay. Not the CEO. The CEO is Howard Schultz. So, but the president of Starbucks, I said, hey, dude, like, okay, so I have this weird thing that I said, one of my dreams is I want to work with people that I admire. So, I put the spiritual twist to things, and I make things happen. And suddenly, like, I was like, okay, I want to work with this guy. So I kind of recruited him as my mentor. And at some point, I'm like, hey, Howard, you want to be on an interview? He's like, sure, Luis, sure. And another cool thing about this dude, I mean, he's retired, he's in his house and whatever. He's like, I said, what are you doing these days? He said, well, my wife and I just started giving scholarships to people that want to go to college. And it's for people that are undocumented. So, but they don't just do like a 1-year thing. Like they're supporting 12 students through 4-year college degrees. It's like, he doesn't even give a damn about the law. He's like, just, these people need it. They don't have money. My wife and I support them. I'm like, dude, like, I mean, that's like super awesome. And like, it's just so ignorant when people say eat the rich and do all these things, when like day in and day out, I just see how much good work these guys do every fucking day. Are there bad rich people? Of course there are. There are bad poor people. It's just like a lot of times what you see in the news, you see it on the news because it's not normal. So when you see like the dude from Benny May doing shady deals, like, yeah, I mean, that happened, but it's not what happens every day. That's what you're seeing on the news. They just want you to think that shit's what's happening, but no. And suddenly, like, after you make $325,000 a year, you start growing horns and fangs, because that's when you become the 1%. It's like, I mean, really? Did you even know that it was just $325,000? That's hardly rich, in my opinion.
Yeah. You never understood the eat the rich mentality. And of course, as usual with anything, the bad voices, the wrong people, they have the loudest voice. They're seen the most. So, and that's typical of absolutely anything.
So, like, one of the things is I want for people to see that, like, have like the whole idea of having money is not a bad thing. Like, a lot of people say, well, money is dirty, it changes people. I'm like, no, like, what I've noticed, especially like in like deep psychological and shamanistic ways, like, money actually brings out the real you. So if you're a shitty person, it's going to maximize your shittiness with the money. If you're a good person, it's going to maximize your coolness. So money is not like, they say, oh, the love of money is the root of all evil. No, that's so stupid. What's not to love about money? I mean, if you really think about it, it's an extension of your work. Like, it's honoring your skill, time, commitment, or whatever you put into things. That's what money is. Now, wanting to fetch somebody else's money, that is pretty fucking messed up.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely.
You got any questions there, Nick?
I was going to ask about, Luis, your involvement with the Libertarian Party. I don't know. You probably see on social media that David and I do like to clown on the LP and have our pretty strong opinions there. But I was just going to ask about your involvement there and what you think of the LP. And I think you mentioned in before you're still doing some work with them.
Yeah, well, I was a secretary for, I don't know, 4 years or so. And it was like right after my spiritual awakening, when I realized, okay, so like the very first time I did Petrocactus, I got out of the trip and I told my shaman, whoa, so Rumpel is right? And he said, yeah, actually, he's right. So, it's just going to take time to be able to get to that place. You cannot, it's unsustainable to just do it overnight. So I was like, okay, what can I do? So I didn't know I was pretty green. So like the first thing I knew was like, I'm going to go do political work because that's, what it's there to do. So I joined the LP and I was like really, I put a lot of sweat equity there and money. Like you don't really get paid because, we're not a big party. So it's like whatever we do is with our own money. The conferences, everything, like we put our money. It's not like, that's one thing I like, and it's not like the Republicans or the Democrats that use stolen money from, the national fund, whatever. So that part is pretty cool. Now, I noticed that every time, like there's something that we want to get done because of I can't remember the rules that they used during the conventions, whatever rules that like you have to speak in a certain order and whatever. And if not, they won't even notice you and whatever. Which it's a good thing if you want to focus, but like we got hijacked by Tea Party people like twice, so like we never really get anywhere. Like when you see like real, like if you get people that are noticed in the Libertarian Party, most likely they're not libertarians. They're just using our platform because we're good people. They just hijack it and they use our money and our fucking visibility. Like Kathy Glass, for instance, here in Texas. I don't know if maybe somebody in your audience will know about that. So it's like she brought a bunch of friends and they like, because you have to have a certain amount of votes to be able to whatever. So she's like, I don't know if she brought her fucking entire family. So she became like, the governor's list or whatever. So anyway, I like the Libertarian Party, but it just gets hijacked so many times by non-libertarians that it gets a bad name, Bill Weld, he's not a libertarian. Like, fuck. So all that's to say, I think that there's like a lot of lovely good people, but it's more like grassroots. Here in Arlington, Texas, we got rid of red light cameras, and here with my friends, we also, because of our work here in Dallas-Fort Worth, we have open carry here in Texas. So there is a way that we could use the state to minimize the state. I don't believe in voting for somebody per se, but I think that whenever it's like those things, you can do it. It's not like California that even though people vote in favor of and they win, the state's like, oh, never mind. Here we actually have, we have 20,000 people that move to Texas every month. And that's because of the pretty libertarian market that we have, like no income tax with low taxes, and it's very business friendly. So, we do work there. So when you say, well, are they shitty? There are a lot of shitty people that try to hijack, but there's a lot of good people. So, we're going to make cannabis legal here. I don't know if maybe this year or next year. So, like the whole idea of what the government can tell us we can do or not, that's preposterous. But for normal people, you guys and I are on the fringes. We're like on the extremes of life. Normal people will care about what's legal and what's not. So, we have to start somewhere, I think.
Can you repeat that last part? You cut out for just a second.
Oh, I was just asking, what do you think about that? It's like, somebody that is in the mainstream may care about what's legal and what's not. They're not as, like, in the same position that we are. So allowing a lot of these things to, they have a big stigma. And if we keep them in the dark, a lot of people will never really even want to see the benefits of, for instance, cannabis plant. Or if they make kratom illegal, they won't have it. So, like, I mean, I do think there's a time and a place for the political play.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I prefer the method of letting people know about, the benefits or whatever of kratom, cannabis, what have you, anything that's illegal that people should be able to do. They should know about it, but also know that legality does not equate to morality. I would prefer people know and do it anyways, just whether it's legal or not. I do view the something being legal as a reason for someone to feel that they can now partake in that activity or whatever. Sends the message that, oh, it's legal, the government said it's okay, so I can do it, versus the message of, I can do this anyways. But it does eliminate the risk of doing it. So I understand where you guys are coming from with that. I just personally prefer a different path.
Some of the risk.
Go ahead, David.
Oh, I was just saying it alleviates some of the risk, not all of the risk, because there's still risk. Here in Washington, like cannabis is legal, but there's still lots of risk. There's still things about it that are illegal. So it only alleviates it partially.
That's true. And it also legalization of, I guess, different cannabis, kratom, whatever. If it's legal, it's most likely going to be taxed. And like you said, there's regulations and other things about how you can transport, how much, all that stuff that you could still get popped for. But I don't want to take anything away from the people who are doing work like you're talking about, Luis. It is what it is. Everybody's finding their own path towards freedom. And
yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about. Like, I work in various platforms, various arenas, and just because, one person may not necessarily agree with one doesn't mean that we need to shit on it. Like, if it's actually creating results, like, I'm a man of results, dude. Like, in all of these things, they are creating results or making things better. Now, I do agree, like, for instance, in Colorado, like, people are going back to the black market for cannabis because it's so damn expensive, like, now that it's legal. So, like, a lot of things do backfire. I do not believe that, like, legalization is the best way to do it. I think that decriminalization is better.
Yep.
So, and there's just, like, different ways to view things and be able to understand or help people understand. That's the main thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll tell you, conversations with people like you, Luis, and, Hody, and a few other people through other forums, it's made me realize I need to be more open to listening to everybody else's, ideas for solutions and what they have done and made progress with, and not just immediately discount it because I disagree. So
thank you for that. And that's what I'm saying. Now, is it my preferred method? No, it's not, but it's just one where I can actually reach mainstream people. Because, like, if you guys and I talk, we're going to agree about the right thing to do it in our eyes. But that doesn't mean that, little Hannah in downtown Fort Worth will agree because whatever reason, So how do we just reach more people? Like, we need to speak different languages. And that's all I'm talking about.
Makes sense to me.
Yep. There's definitely compromises here and there, it sounds like. And that's a hard thing for a lot of people, myself included. I'm not a big fan of the compromises, but speaking with you, stuff like this, and like David mentioned with Hody, it's really eye-opening as far as the fact that we need to find common ground and a way to work together. And that doesn't mean we have to agree on everything, that's for sure, but we have the same goal, so there's really no point in fighting each other getting there.
Yeah, exactly. And okay, so part of the whole idea of, like, my activism too is, like, okay, you're an anarchist. You found out that the state fucks you in your sleep and people are, like, really pissed and angry. Okay, that's fine. What are you going to do about it? Like, I think there's stuff beyond that. Like, there's people that say, complete agorism. I'm not going to, like, okay, sure, that's fine. But how much money can you really make if you're a full agorist? There are limits of how much you can make. And like, I mean, just being realistic, financial freedom leads to physical freedom. So there's something to be said about, like, okay, if you want to, I mean, like I was saying, I made Emancipated Human LLC so I can play with the system and I can actually make more money and avoid more taxes. So I mean, that is using a tool that's readily available for anybody. So like the way the state works is, we're gonna fuck you unless you know how to not be fucked.
Yeah, absolutely. Any loopholes, anything that you can use to get out of paying taxes, whether legal or not, I'm for.
Yeah, so I mean, that's the thing. So okay, now you're angry. What are you gonna do? So you can use that anger and fuel it, like find a purpose. That's one thing that people, like, they're using like your youth's fire for hate. That takes you nowhere.
Yeah.
So find something that you're really good at in any sector of life, and do it for like something that helps you, your family, and your immediate society. That's like that takes us like faster to freedom than anything else. Like if you're turned on by like what you're actually supposed to be doing, and what puts your soul on fire.
Yeah, absolutely. If you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life, that old saying, but apply that to agorism, anarchism, personal freedom, and there you go. That's awesome. Are you going to Anarchapulco this year?
Yes, I am. The thing is, like, the 5th year that I'm speaking, so it's kind of exciting. And again, I'm gonna do the same thing, but I the whole self-actualization, like how you can, there's one thing, like, I don't think we will, like, if we were to fight government directly, we're never gonna get rid of it like that, because whatever you resist persists. So how do you get away from that? And that is, the way out is through. So once you find your purpose, what you're good at, and you're using it, then, like, people that are happy and turned on, they don't think about like screwing people over. They're not worried about gossiping. They're not worried about those things. They're just like, I'm here doing my purpose. And they don't look for mommy daddy government to, like, oh, like, I'm jealous of this cunt because whatever reason. Like, I moved a few years ago away from like the whole idea of competition, like, because people say, oh, it's a capitalist, you believe in competition. I'm like, no, I really don't. I mean, I believe in collaboration in the sense of, like, I am a competition to myself. And like, so in the consulting firm where I work, there's been projects that are like too massive, like the Cowboy Stadium, or the huge hospitals here, that one general contractor is not enough, so they bring 2 or even 3. So and they're competitors. So what we do is we create an alignment, and we get everybody working for the same goal, instead of like, I'm gonna try to look the best or whatever. No, like, the fucking goal is to create the Cowboy Stadium, or this hospital, or this whatever. So that is, I think, more resourceful, and we can get places faster than if we're like always looking for that recognition. I, me. So it's like the consciousness evolves from me to us to all of us. And when you're in that place, like, you're like really putting your deposits into the human bank account, in the sense of, like, I'm gonna do my best for, like, the sake of freedom, for the sake of empowering, and so it's a different perspective, and not everybody even understands it yet. But I mean, that's also one of the things that a lot of these big companies are talking about, like 4-level leadership, and it's like spiritual quotient, how you can really understand that there's more than this physical thing, and how you can move through that. I mean, that's kind of like sci-fi shit, but that's what, like, they're focusing on.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's pretty directly in line with a message that we put out from this show quite a bit, is changing the culture and the way humans interact with each other on a mass scale in order to find that freedom that we're all looking for. That's definitely more important, in my opinion, than going after the government with violence or what have you. And that's not discounting self-defense in any way, but I strongly believe that a violent revolution or anything like that's just going to create a power vacuum, especially if nobody knows how to live together peacefully beforehand and how to be whole, good people.
Shoot, I totally agree. So that's the thing. Like, whenever you see that there's a lot of revolt happening in a country, and then they kill the president or the emperor or whatever, and then another idiot comes up, and it's the same shit but with different shoes, and like the cycle keeps going on and on because people are looking for and all of this is rooted by childhood, and takes us to like the importance of peaceful parenting. Like, people grow up without enough presence from the parents. So they grow up with this idea of lack of self-worth and lack of safety. And that's when they're like, oh yeah, the government, we need them to keep us safe. If you lean towards the conservative side, you need a daddy government. If you lean towards the liberal side, you need a mommy government. And you can see the archetypes there. So
That's
people that are like more awakened, more self-actualized, they're like, I am my own person. I don't need a daddy government or a mommy government to look after me. I can look after my siblings and they can look after me. Like, we are interdependent.
It's a very good point.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the major reasons that we have the public indoctrination centers that they call schools. They're taking the parenting away from the families and putting it on the state for just that reason, to create the mommy and daddy issues that make children reliant on the state and when they get older, and see it as a parenting entity.
Oh, heck yeah. And, I don't think that necessarily schooling is a bad thing. I mean, I homeschool my kids. Even beyond that, we do unschooling. But, I'm not shitting down on schools because they are a good service to humanity. I think the issue is that some parents conflate schooling with parenting.
Sure.
Like, they expect that the kids learn everything about life from school. So there is a fucking vacuum created by shitty parents because their own parents were not present. So, like, my wife tells me that I'm actually a little bit of a bubble boy because my parents had like an amazing relationship and they were like really present with me and my siblings and all that. So, that's apparently not a normal thing. I'm learning. So when my mom asked me, she's like, dude, why do they keep inviting you to talk at all these places? What do you do? And I'm like, very honestly, Mom, I tell people things that you've told me growing up. That's it. Like, I'm passing on the message from my parents to everybody. So, once like you get people to become healed, and healing is like becoming whole. Once they become whole, they can move and do things that they couldn't before because they feel like they're not complete. So anyway, that's my focus, trying to help the individual to become their fullest potential.
Absolutely.
Well, while we're on that subject of helping individuals, why don't you tell us some about your local activism in your area, things you've done like that? I believe you were involved with Feed the Need.
Yeah, I'm friends with the guys that initiated it, and I think it's the 5th or 6th year. So, and I've been doing it for like 4. So what we do is, like, I don't know if you've seen on the news that there's people that have like really good hearts and they try to feed the homeless, but suddenly the fucking cops pour bleach in the foods, or they actually take people to jail because they don't have a permit to serve food and all this shit, right? So what we do is we go fully armed. Here in Texas, like, it doesn't really get super cold until like middle of December. So the first or second week of December, we do our Feed the Need. And so we're giving clothes. Like this year, we even had a couple of ladies giving haircuts. So we have food, we have clothes, we have toiletries, hygiene. We give out sleeping bags, blankies, anything that you could possibly need. And then as we are fully armed, the cops won't even touch us. Like, they don't even, like, they won't even try. Which, I mean, it's this kind of a sad thing that we have to do that to be able to help our brethren in need. But fuck it, that's what we have to do, so we do it. And then once we do our thing and get clean up and go grab a beer or two at night, we go out and go to the underpasses and all of these places, and we see people sleeping on the streets, and we make them tents. We set them up in the tent, so they're, I mean, it's not like being inside of an insulated house, but it's much better, for the rain and the sleet and the wind and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So we still have a bunch of tents, and we're planning about like going again and doing our thing. And you know what? Like the cops, they go and knife the tents of all these people because it's illegal to be homeless, right?
Yeah.
You cannot sleep outside. And I'm like, fucking stupid fuck what? Like, why would you do that to somebody? Like, I mean, that's pretty like evil to me. Anyway, so when we do that, we go the next day fully armed again, and we're just like doing rounds, making sure that like the cops don't do that to people. And all these people, they know us. They're like, oh, damn gun people, like we're the gun people. And they feel safe when we're there. Like they always are like excited to see like all sorts of freaking huge ass weapons. I mean, I'm only 5'8", right? And I have like a couple of guns, and like all these dudes, they have big old guns too. It's like cute to see, I guess, for them. Anyway, so that's one thing. And then like recently we actually created a guillotine, and we took it to a government building, and we did a demonstration outside.
Oh, that's right.
It was like the court, yeah. And I got to speak a little bit there too, and just sending a message to like what you're doing would have gotten your head rolling in the 1700s. So you better slow your roll because we're not afraid, kind of thing, So it's a fun thing to do. And yesterday, actually, I had this weird idea. We do our demonstrations and all of that, right? I was like, hey, I want to hang out with my kids, but I also want to like do a open carry march. So I told my friends, I'm like, there's scooters in downtown. Let's, those motorized scooters, like the Lime bikes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I told my homies, let's just, take our kids. Like, it seems like most of my friends have kids. They're like, let's take our kids out. We go scooters and we take our rifles. So we are in like, I was like, let's go to Uptown. Like, that's the plush part of Dallas. We're like, I don't know, 15 of us, like fucking idiots, just scootering in Dallas with our ARs and, our big old pistols. And it was nice to get eyeballs there because, Dallas became blue. So there's just a lot of ivory tower people that are like, they never even consider the fact to use a gun to defend themselves because they live in such a plush area. But, I mean, not everybody has that ability. So we go in, we're rolling in with our scooters and our kids and our big old guns, scary black guns. And, we get pictures taken and eyes and all of that. I mean, it's just a normalization of it. We're like in fucking Texas. Everybody's supposed to have a gun here, right? So, I guess, because I'm Mexican too, it's like, well, brown kid with a gun. Ooh, that's kind of scary. But, we just have fun with it.
That's awesome. That's pretty interesting too, taking the kids. That's kind of shows a message of safety as well. Everybody's just out having a good time with their kids and they happen to have guns. And if you're responsible with them, there's nothing to worry about. Right.
I mean, like, whenever I go biking with my kids, sometimes just for shits and giggles, I take one of my AR-15s and, because you can. Why not? I mean, shoot, like, if I see people walking with their sticks, just in case there's a dog, well, I'm walking with my stick in case there's a blue dog,
Yeah.
You never know.
Absolutely. I do the same, actually, with my dogs.
So, yeah, we have fun. I like to have fun.
Very cool. Very cool. So you'll be speaking on what specifically in Anarchapulco, or is that hidden information thus far?
We have speeches there. I have one for the investment summit. And I mean, like I was telling you, working with people that I admire, I ended up working, Jeff Berwick, Jeffrey Tucker, freaking Doug Casey is a mentor too, and he'll be there. And I'm like, my mind's blown that I'm going to get to work with him. I kind of adopted him as my dad. And like I asked for, counsel or advice, whatever. Hey, Doug, what's going on here, bro? He helps me. It's like, well, Luis, incidentally, how he talks, and it's so much fun to hang out with him. Anyway, so the investment summit, I will be focusing on expat communities, and like, so my work with Jeff is like the people that decide to move out of the States, and so I interview them. So I'm gonna just talk about how, like, when you first come into anarchy or libertarianism, because not everybody's an anarchist there, you feel a little bit alone. So, okay, you're alone, but then you find people through, the Dollar Vigilante groups that, live near you and they have similar experiences. So it's like a connecting thing. So putting the human touch into things. Because, I mean, we are pack animals. We need connection, right? So that's kind of what I'll be focusing on that one. And then in the actual Anarchapulco one, back to self-actualization, but with a different spin, a little bit more shamanistic. I mean, gosh, like, I'm not scared of like doing shamanistic stuff anymore. They have freaking David Icke talking about reptilians,
Yeah, that's awesome. I
I'm
haven't
like,
been to.
dude, like, really, David Icke?
Yeah, I haven't been to Anarchapulco, but maybe someday I'll get down there, see you talk, and enjoy the festivities.
Dude, like, I mean, imagine that. It's like you get to see everybody that you like in a physical place by the beach in a nice resort. Like, life can get better, I mean, there is a little bit of a depression setting in, like the week after you come home from an Acapulco, because you're like, oh, my friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, but it is so amazing to do that.
Absolutely. Very cool. So where can people find you, Luis? Where are you at on social media and whatnot? And you mentioned kratom as well.
Yeah. Facebook, Luis Fernando Mises. Same Instagram. I just created a Snapchat, and I mean, I can spend a couple of minutes explaining why.
Yeah, go for it.
There's a thing that I noticed. I have, as I was telling you, two kids. One's 13, the other one's 10, and nobody from their generation's on Facebook. That's for old people. And when there was the purge, and everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, what the hell are we gonna do now? What the hell?" I'm like, okay, so I remember, like, in the late 80s, Bill Clinton used to play the sax in MTV.
Oh,
That
yeah.
was the wow cool factor. And then in the 90s, people that saw him on MTV voted for him. So, I mean, it's pretty clever, very honestly. So what I'm saying is, if we move to Instagram, if we move to Snapchat, and we start posting there, that's where we can influence the youth so they can not be brainwashed by socialism. So that's what I started doing. And I mean, this is like super recent, but something funny, like, I actually have a couple of my daughter's friends that follow me on Instagram, and one of them likes a lot of my stuff. And my daughter was talking on the phone. It's like, "Why do you like all my dad's stuff?" I was like, "Oh, because I like it. He always talks about capitalism. I don't know what the hell that is, but it sounds cool." So,
that's awesome.
Like, the way I see it is like a really good way to plant seeds and to add the wow factor. So, it's kind of cool, if you will, because when you're at that age, you don't necessarily think completely logically, you think emotionally. So I think that's, like, I mean, like I was telling you, speaking in different languages, like seeing how the youth speaks and focusing there is pretty important. So that's why I got that one.
Absolutely. That's a great idea. And I remember after the purge, a lot of people were talking about, dumping Facebook and YouTube and all that and going to the more alternative options like DTube, Minds, and MeWe and Steemit and all that stuff. And I didn't hear a lot of people talking about Snapchat or Instagram, all that stuff. But yeah, it's a good way to talk to the younger generations, because that's something that I'm not super familiar with as well as Snapchat or Instagram or anything. I'm on there, but just very very lightly in there. But being everywhere, saturation of all social media, that's how you get a message out anyways. So that's pretty genius.
Absolutely. And I think that, like, going to, like, fully, like, non-mainstream things, that's just gonna be a circle jerk. Like I was telling you, like if it's just the three of us talking all the time with no outside dissenting opinion, it's gonna get boring pretty fast, you know. So going towards where the mainstream is, because like I don't need to like tell you guys things because you know everything I know. So we need to tell people that need this shit. And just talking to each other on YouTube, I mean, I like to make a dollar or two there, but I think like going towards the people that like would help us grow the ideology is more resourceful, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. You don't want an echo chamber that gets thrown around quite a bit, but it doesn't create any growth just to have an echo chamber without talking to people about things they don't know about or maybe disagree with.
Yeah, I mean, I personally have friends like real life. I have friends that like are into like same viewpoints as mine, you know. So I think there's value in that.
Yeah, I mean, just because you share different views doesn't mean that you can't learn something as well. It's not necessarily just teaching everybody else. You have to learn and grow as a person as you help other people. Absolutely. Definitely something that we'll get into here with the Pod Stash. Get on that Snapchat and Instagram and whatnot. Keep up with the youngins, I guess. There's
Yeah,
David chuckling.
like in 2015, I made I made a presentation. Like the Libertarian Party invited me to Austin to talk about social media, and what I told them is the revolution will be won with memes. You know, that was in 2015, and then you know we had the meme war and all the shit. But like it's such a succinct way to send a message,
Yep.
and anybody can understand it. Like the kids, like you know, my daughter sends me memes every day. And, like I mean, all of these guys are into that. So how we can continue? I mean, it's just like the fucking Cold War. It just keeps going now on memes. So it's important to keep throwing those on like spread them everywhere where the kids can see them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's the new, you know, very precise way of communicating, and I definitely believe in inflammatory statements with memes, things that upset people, because that really gets them thinking about it, as well as just regular informative as well. You know, comedy, just things like that gets people going, and it's definitely the new form of spreading those ideas. So take note, anybody who's listening. Spread out not only to the alternative sources, but also to the mainstream as well. Keep bringing other people in.
The inflammatory ones, they'll bring hate, but at the same time, it creates a lot of discussion. I've seen it often with memes that I make.
And if I can share something else, like I actually have been moving away from calling myself an anarchist or capitalist or any of this and not using those words at all, just so mainstream people don't get scared and they actually are more willing and open to listen to what I have to say. And it's been working. I don't know if you know JP Sears, the comedian. That guy even speaks at the capitalism conference. He's a huge libertarian and the left loves the fucker. You know, I mean, I think that without using the terms and just by bringing things in a humorous way, actually tears down that barrier that prevents people from listening and learning. And suddenly they're laughing and they are taking in your information. So that's why I think, like, you know, funny memes that send a good message are super important too.
Yeah, absolutely. You say you're moving away from the term anarchist or capitalist and whatnot. Do you replace that with anything, or do you just go just straight on your message? Because I get a lot of people in my personal life asking me about this podcast. They say, "Oh, you do a podcast? What's it about?" And I say, "Anarchism and agorism," and I get that, you know, blank stare, like, "What the hell are you talking about?"
Exactly. So I'm not replacing words necessarily. I'm just going on with the message that's sound and logical and funny at times. You know, I post a bunch of like funny memes, just like that. I've gotten like thousands of shares out of stupid shit, and that brings in more people.
Yeah.
that follow me or that, you know, I ask for friendship, and then I start talking about, you know, what makes sense or whatever. And they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like now, dude, like I have so many people that are on the left side and the right side that they're like finally understanding things because I'm not throwing it down there, you know, just making them swallow the truth. It's like, hey, have you considered this? Hey, look at this. This is funny. And they're like, ha ha ha, yeah, you're right. Oh my gosh, I never thought about it. But if there's like something that will make them pissed, immediately they're gonna block it from their sensual, you know, connection, and they're not gonna hear you.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely relying on the actual message more so than the labels is something that we haven't gone in depth too much before, but it'll definitely bring people in. Because, hearing words, especially agorism, because so few people know about agorism that aren't already in it, it just really turns them off unless they want to ask about it, and even then, it scares a lot of people away. So I guess the underlying message of freedom and definitely personal responsibility is a good thing to lean on and explain to people.
You know, one of the best books that actually talk about freedom is Market for Liberty by the 10 Hills. They never talk about capitalism, anarchy, or any of that, like at all throughout the entire book. And it actually makes perfect case for almost everything that you can think of freedom related. And it's like, holy shit, like these two people are like geniuses. And so that's kind of like, you know, what I am going after.
You said it was Markets for Freedom?
Market for Freedom by the 10 Hills.
Awesome.
Actually, I have a friend that translated that into Spanish. And I mean, so like, because he was so inspired by it because of the same reason, like it's non-inflammatory, it has solutions, and it's an easy read, and it's not a fad book. I mean, who the hell is gonna like read Human Action like on their first go?
Sure.
You know? Like that's not something that normal people do. So if you give them this book, it's small, it does the trick, it has no inflammatory things. So anyway, it's like I'm totally in for that kind of stuff. And people open their hearts and minds, and once they trust you, that they know that you're not trying to go after them or hurt them or just kind of like if people feel like you're trying to sell them something, they're going to go away from you. So
Sure.
It's like, hey, let's be friends. This is what I'm about. And if you're like living actual freedom, you're going to be like, okay, dude has good results. Let's hear, you know?
Absolutely. That's a very important point. Definitely got to lay the foundations with friendship and understanding and just, you know, basic human connection.
Yeah. So I think we've reached the hour.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to maybe talk about anything else, or I'm curious if you have any questions.
I think we covered a lot of it. David, what you got anything there?
He's answered all my questions and thoroughly engrossed me in understanding where he comes from. So I hope the listeners get the same out of this conversation.
Absolutely. I just want to make sure
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, we had a great time. I had a great time as well. I just want to make sure everyone can find out more about the stuff that you're passionate about and the stuff that you're bringing to them. Give access to that. So just go ahead and list off the ways they can find you. We're talking about kratom, anything that you want people to know, because we want to connect them with you.
Yeah, I mean, just the social media stuff. I'm something that puts people off sometimes too. I guess I'm a vegetarian, so it's they're triggered by my vegetarian posts every now and then because I put my food on Instagram. Then maybe they don't want to follow me. That's okay. What else? I don't know. I like turtles. That's it.
So you said, does Emancipated Human have a website? Is it emancipatedhuman.com?
Yes. And actually, since you're talking about that, I wanted to say something really, really fast on that same
Sure.
thing. I am switching Emancipated Human because I want to use that for my consulting personal firm. So I'm moving all my content eventually to luisfernandomises.com. So it's not happened yet, but I will move it like within the next couple of months. Because I was thinking about my exit strategy. Like, if, I don't know, 25 years I want to sell the consulting firm, it's kind of hard to sell it as Luis Fernando Mises. Now, Emancipated Human LLC is actually kind of a really cool name, and it's more likely to be purchased.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of what I'm moving towards. But as of, now, I'm still on that. It is a Facebook page too. It's there. I used to have 72,000 followers, and I was reaching like 2 million people a week. It was kind of fun,
Yeah.
And what's funny is like some people, when they knew I was Emancipated Human, oh, you are Emancipated Human? Oh my God! Like they knew the page, but they didn't know who I was. So it's always funny to see that face. Anyway, so that's it.
Awesome. Yeah, emancipatedhuman.com, on Facebook. Where can they find you? Snapchat, Instagram.
Instagram, Luis Fernando Mises. Snapchat, I am CryptoPunk, and my name there is actually Scott Pilgrim. And my face shows there, so they will be able to see it. I like Scott Pilgrim a lot, so I was like, well, that'll be me there.
That's great.
Why not?
Yeah, that's a great movie. Awesome. Well, definitely check out Luis on social media, on Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, and emancipatedhuman.com and on Facebook, and we'll put those links here in the description as well. We'll get you all together with Luis. It was good talking to you, man. Thank you very much for coming on the show. Excellent messages.
I'm super appreciative.
Yeah, loved having you on, man.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, guys. Have a good one.
You as well.
Yeah, you too.
Look out for Luis at Anarchapulco. We'll see y'all later.